G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here and watching my content. I really do appreciate it. I am trying to control my excitement for this weekend. Six Nations 2023, Ireland versus France. This could be the championship decider of Six Nations. And believe it or not, I've waited 3 years to watch this test match. Okay? 3 years. And you might be saying, Wildcard, Ireland plays France every year, mate. Maybe you should just be maybe you weren't watching. No. I've waited 3 years to watch Johnny the Goat Sexton to play against France. Okay? 2 years in a row, Sexton has been left out of this test match. And and left me wanting, left me wondering, could Ireland have won last 2 years against France if Johnny Sexton was on the field? Both test matches in the last 2 years were quite close. And as we know, Johnny Sexton, when he's on the field for the Ireland side, it's a completely different team. The only test match Ireland have lost since Johnny Sexton returned from HRA in 2021 is against the All Blacks at Eden Park. The unbeatable fortress of the All Blacks is the only test match that Ireland has lost with Johnny Sexton on the field. And this is going to be huge. Unless Sexton trips on a banana peel, God forbid that does not happen, I am super excited for this weekend. So yeah, with that being said, let's have a look at some of the news going into this test match. So Ireland come out of the Welsh test last week with a bit of injuries. So Dan Sheehan is the latest one that's been added to the injury list to a hamstring injury. So Sheehan is quite big for Ireland in terms of the set piece, in terms of the lineouts. And already, and also before the test match was kicked off, Gibson Parks and Cian Healy were both ruled out after being named in the team last week as well. So yeah, already the injuries were piled up before the kickoff against Welsh, and Sheehan is just the latest addition to the injury. Johnny Sexton did have a head knock up by Williams, and he was cleared of concussion protocols afterwards, after the test match as well. So he is cleared to play to everybody's pleasure. For the French side, they play Italy last week, and it wasn't quite the result. It wasn't quite the performance they were looking for. But Fabien Galtier has confidence on his players. Has decided only to make 2 changes off the bench with Francois Crocs, and one of the most exciting and most highly talked about fly halves in France, Baptiste Couillot, gets called into that reserve number 10 jersey. With the lock, Thomas Lavault and Nolan Le Garec gets shuffled out of the 2 spots that's been replaced. So yeah, that's the minor changes to the teams. But overall, let's quickly have a look at the history between the 2 teams. Overall, believe it or not, the French actually has a dominance over the Irish in terms of the heads up. 59 wins for the French, 39 wins for Ireland. And really, France was pretty much dominating the Irish since the 1980s, all the way up to when Joe Schmidt's pretty much taken over Ireland, where Ireland finally started to put on a bit more consistency against the French side. And then, obviously, last 2 years, Ireland has lost to France 2 years in a row without Johnny Sexton. In 2020, interesting enough, Johnny Sexton was on the field. Ireland still lost to France at home. Away. Still, that was the first year when Andy Farrell took over, and the Irish team was completely different in 2020 to 2021. The development with the team is just so drastic, especially with Johnny Sexton maturing into that leadership role, into that. Really, I can't believe this guy was still getting better at his age of, what was it, 36, 37 at the time. Still got better, and really taking Ireland to another level when he returned in 2021 following his HRA. So with that being said, Ireland go into this test match after playing against Wales last week. It was really just one of the most polished performances in recent times for the Irish team, with Johnny Sexton really directing the traffic quite well with that 4-pack, creating the opportunities, creating fast ball. The game was pretty much over for the Welsh before half time. Ireland had put on 3 tries and two penalties. before halftime, and absolutely just with Welsh look like a completely out of the league. Ireland in the second half taking the foot off the gas a little bit, allow the Welsh to taking over the control for a big chunk of the second half before the Irish closed out the game with a bonus point win or with a bonus point. And yeah, it was just and then yeah, despite under tremendous amount of pressure in the second half, the Irish side was able to hold on able to hold on to the Welsh onslaught. Really defended those set pieces quite well. The lineouts, stealing those lineouts inside their own 22, and the Welsh wasn't clinical enough to really only put on one try in the second half, despite the overwhelming opportunities that was given to them. Overall, I was a little bit surprised the Irish scrum without Ty Furlong. Yeah, so Turf Furlong, there was some speculation that he was available to play this weekend, but he was ruled out once again. And without Ty Furlong, the Irish scrum was struggling a little bit, had a few scrum losses against the Welsh. But overall, the Irish performance was quite impressive. On the other side, Italy versus France. This was looking like was going to be could potentially be one of the upsets of the year already in the making. Italians was chasing France. They were actually ahead for a brief period in the second half before France finally taken over. I think it was Jalibert scoring a try. But yeah, French really struggled. If the Italians had a better kicker, could have potentially won the game. Italian was knocking, on the try line all the way to the 81st minute before the game was finally, won by the French. But yeah, it was really, really that close all the way to extra times before the French was able to close out this one. And yeah, some key points out of this game: penalty count, France 18 penalties, way too high for any tier 1 nation. Good defense on the French side, and also the set piece. I was really, really surprised how good the Italian set piece were. The Italians had dominance in the scrummaging, believe it or not, at times. Despite, I think the weight difference between the scrums was like outrageous. Was like 60 kilos or something. Some outrageous large difference in terms of weight on the scrummaging, but the Italians was able to get the better technique, get the better shove on the French team at times, and also the set piece, the lineouts. The more again, despite the weight advantage for the French team, the more defense was lacking for the French side. Charles Ollivon was yellow carded for sacking the mob and giving away the penalty try. So yeah, really not ideal start for the French team despite getting the win. With that being said, this will be against Ireland. We'll be against Ireland. This, in Dublin. The weather is going to be fine on Saturday. Not going to be any rain. It's going to be, probably as good as you can get for a test match rugby in Dublin. And with that being said, let's quickly look at the actual lineup. Comes in the front rowers: Andrew Porter, Rob Herring, Finlay Bellum. Rob Herring moves up on the bench, obviously due to injuries to Sheehan. And this is going to be a little bit of a question mark. Herring is always the reserve guy. He only gets like limited time for the Irish side, maybe like 15 minutes off the bench. And it's going to be a big question mark whether or not he's going to be able to handle like a 60-minute test match. We'll have to see how that's going to affect the Irish lineup. Probably the most important part of the game. Finlay Bellum last week, like I said, wasn't as good as Ty Furlong against the Welsh in the scrummaging, but this week, another different test coming up in the French scrum. Like I said, the French scrum didn't look that particularly impressive, so I don't know how this is going to turn out, to be fair. So with the French side, Cyril Bauer comes in number 1, Julian Macon number 2, and Uni Antonio at number 3. And Antonio is the biggest prop in the world. He's also probably the tallest prop in the world at 1.97 m. But Andrew Porter, apparently he can squat 350 kilos. So 152 kilos in Antonio is just like a warm-up set of squat for Andrew Porter. So the weight shouldn't actually be an issue for Porter to handle. But I do think that the Porter being shorter, having the lower center of gravity, potentially has a big advantage over Antonio in that scrummaging. And we did see that the French scrummaging had a bit of trouble against the South Africans, against, the shorter South African front rower, what was his name? Ox Uncha, who was only like 1.75 m. And Antonio did struggle with him quite a bit for how difficult that the difference in height. So yeah, Andrew Porter might have that advantage over Antonio as well, but the height difference is obviously a little bit smaller than Ox Incha. But yeah, this will be interesting to see who's going to actually have the advantage following last week's performance. Ty Burns comes in number 4 for Ireland. James Ryan, number 5. Both the veterans at the line out. Ty Burns also exceptionally good at the breakdowns. James Ryan also exceptionally good at breakdown in the carry game. Just, yeah, really two huge workhorses for the Irish side. The backbone, the backbone basically of the scrummaging as well. For this French side, Thibaut Flament and Paul Valemsa comes in for number 4 and number 5. Both also really high work rates, but in terms of the polish and in terms of the overall set piece performance, I do think that the Irish Locks has a bit of advantage in that regard. The loose forwards, once again this week for both teams, is absolutely critical in whether or not they're going to win. And I do think that the advantage is hugely on the Irish side. Peter Romani, George Van der Vliet, and Caelan Doris tremendous last week against the Welsh. Caelan Doris scoring a try. Josh Van der Vliet, the breakdowns, absolutely dominant. Peter Romani as well, just super high work rate. All three of these guys basically builds a platform, allowing the Irish for the passport, allowing Johnny Sexton to do what he does best, creating those opportunities to score tries, to just basically, rumble teams over with that fast breakdown speed. So with the French, on the other side, the breakdown wasn't that great last week against the Italians. A lot of work needs to be put in this week to match the breakdown speed. And if the French can't shut down the breakdown speed on the Irish side, this could just be a game over quite quickly for the French. The coming in at number 6, Anthony Gerlock, formerly, believe it or not, in the French diving team. So he's now converted to playing rugby. But yeah, he's number 6. Charles Ollivon. He had a long injury spill. So since he returned from injury, he was injured for like a year or something for leg injury. So after he returned, hasn't really found his form since his injury. And also no longer the captaincy. Captain's gone to Anton Dupont. And Gregory Audrys comes in number 8. So yeah, I do think that Charles Ollivon, last week's performance wasn't that great. And this week, big shift needs to come out of him, and big improvement in terms of discipline if the French wants to stand a chance. Comes to backline, really interesting lineup here, a few matchups here as well. So Conor Murray comes in number 5. Obviously, Gibson Parks is out. Conor Murray is a little bit slower on the breakdown. Is a little bit more, rigid in the way that he performs. A little bit less creative than Gibson Parks. So yeah, coming in at number 9, Conor Murray. Anton Dupont, pretty much at the opposite end of the spectrum. Fast, agile, creates very creative, a lot of spontaneous decision making out of Dupont. Almost a second playmaker out of number 9 spot. Extremely dangerous. Really stark contrast there between the two. Anton Dupont is the captain at the moment. I do think that the captaincy is wearing Dupont down a little bit. Ever since he became the captain, I do feel like his spontaneous decision-making, spontaneity has dropped a little bit. Obviously, the burden of the captaincy. He also doesn't speak English very, very well. So that just really adds extra burden that he probably shouldn't be dealing with, in my opinion. And I do think that it weighs him down a little bit. I do think that it does affect his performance a little bit. Not much, but it does affect his performance a little bit. I do think that Anton Dupont, before he was captain, definitely looked a little bit more threatening than he is captain at the moment. Let me know your thoughts there, if you agree with me. So coming in at number 10, basically the youngster at 23 years of age, Romain Ntamack, against the absolute veteran, the GOAT of number 10s, especially for Ireland rugby, Johnny Sexton. And like I already mentioned, I can't wait to see this test match. This is how it goes. Ntamack extremely dangerous, probably has a speed advantage over Johnny Sexton, but I do think that Johnny Sexton, based on his performance last week, probably has the physicality advantage over Ntamack, and we shall see how that's going to play out. And obviously, around Johnny Sexton, he's got James Lowe at the blindside winger position. James Lowe also sweeps back as a fullback at times. He kind of works in conjunction with Hugo McKinnon as an additional fullback. Johnny Sexton also sweeps back at times as well, but James Lowe covers a lot for fullback position for Ireland. For France, Ethan Dumortier, a guy that debuted last week, I think he did, gets another run at number 11. The center combination, Stuart McCloskey comes in at number 12. I think there was, due to an injury as well, so he was pretty good last week. Gary Ringrose, the trial, and the veteran at number 13. I do think that he's probably the best number 13 in the world. People might argue with me with that one. The French, again, this two has been, since Jonathan Dante has been out, Yoram Moefana has stepped in a 12th jersey. Moefana is almost like, what do you call it? Almost like Damien Valemsa from the Springboks. He plays a lot of different positions, and he has stepped in number 12 quite well for the French. Gael Fiku, the veteran for the French side, comes in number 13 in the outside center position. Mark Hansen, the blindside winger position for Ireland. Damien Penaud, extremely dangerous at number 14 for the French side. Last week, I thought he had a quiet game last week. Actually, he got turned over a few times, and really work rate was a little bit low last week. But this week he needs to really step up. Mark Hansen, on the other hand, really put a huge shift in for the Irish side. So yeah, despite two players has a history of being exceptional, last week's performances, Penaud hasn't been that great, whereas Hansen really on top of the game last week. So yeah, we'll just see how these two guys match up this weekend. The fullback position, Hugo Kinnan, Thomas Ramos, two, I guess, veterans nowadays for the fullback position for both of their nations. In the bench, Ronan Keller comes in number 16. Dave Kilcoyne comes in number 17 for Ireland. Tom O'Toole comes in number 18 for the French. Gaëtan Barlotte, number 16. Rida Vardy comes in number 17. And Sapili Falatia comes in number 18. Bit of a change in the reserve French. Not change, but a bit of a different reserve from the French. They don't have Demba Bamba at the reserve. So interesting to see how this is gonna match up with the Irish side, with the French reserve front rowers. Ian Henderson, Jack Conan, the reserve lock, and the reserve reserve number 8 for the Irish side. Romain Taufifanoa, again, a guy. He's definitely a finisher for the French, coming off the bench. A huge impact player coming off with his size as well. Number 19 for the French. And Francois Croix, a new addition to the French side, number 21. The back reserves for Ireland, and for the number 9, Craig Casey, and number 1. He was already number 21 last week. Ross Byrne. Again, if Johnny Sexton is pulled out, I really wonder if Ross Byrne can take it. He's been tremendously good for Leinster. And as a result, I do feel like if Johnny Sexton is pulled out for whatever reason, slipping a banana peel, I think Ross Byrne probably can win this game for Ireland regardless. Yeah, and then for the French, Siku Makalu comes in number 21. He can play winger. He also doubles up as a forward replacement, so quite a bit of versatility there. Baptiste Kuyo, the number 10 replacement. Very excited to see him again. Bundy Aki gets that finisher, brutalizer, number 23 for the Irish side. And Matthew Jalibert comes in at number 23 for the French. And that is the full lineup for this weekend. Let me know your predictions, guys. I think the Irish team, is going to win this one with Johnny Sexton back. Even without Johnny Sexton, I think the Irish team will win. The French team really has gone out of form a little bit. The French is defending their winning streak. I think it's extended to 16 or something at the moment now. So big burdens for the French, but I think the streak is going to be over, and Ireland's going to win by a pretty comfortable margin. I think maybe by 10 points. I'd say 32 points to 22. Yeah, let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I'll see you this weekend for the review. Thank you.